With this here, this ain't about being flashy. This is game day, son. It's only about one thing. Getting that W. That's the only thing that matters right now. Boy, are you ready?
The past is the past, you know? It's a new day, bro. My day. Gotta do it now.
Welcome back to another Blindside Fantasy Football Podcast. Matt and I are going to recap all the Week 5 games for you, preview Thursday night's game, do Matt's all-in segment here a little bit later. But first, I got to paint you guys a little picture. Matt and I obviously are in a home league together. We played against each other this week, and I recognize that nobody probably gives a shit about my team other than me, or gives any crap about any of this at all. But I just have to say real quick, going into the Sunday night game, the 8:30 game, I have Colin Kaepernick. Matt, you got Julio Jones. I'm down by a point, and I think I got this locked up. I mean, as long as my quarterback gets me a normal 14, 15 points, and Julio Jones doesn't score a touchdown, I'm in this. I know I'm in this. I mean, we'll get to what Kaepernick did a little bit later, but basically I needed Julio Jones in that Monday night game to get under 90 yards, and being kind of shut down pretty much the whole game. Short little dink and dunk passes, only 35 yards at the half. Has a play towards the end of the fourth quarter there that, kind of gets hurt on, comes out of the game, rests for a little bit, starts to go back in, coaches tell him no, finally does get in there for 2 plays, and of course in that second play gets that 46-yard bomb that ends up making me lose to you by less than a point. 0.9 of a point I lose to you. And of course now we find out it sounds like it's going to be season-ending injury for Julio Jones. So I just got to say, if he's hurt, hold him out, keep him out. Obviously, he was hurt. Of course not. He's got to go back in there and help you beat me this week. It just, I just bothers me so much. I just had to get that out there to our listeners because I'm just frustrated by it. Matt, I can tell by looking at your face, you really don't give a shit. You're just happy that you won.
Well, just a few things you left out. I was projected to win by 60. Yes, 6-0. That's how much better my team is than yours. But then also
projections mean nothing. That's why we play the games.
He did drop a touchdown, so there's another one there. Yeah, I know you're bitching about that one-handed amazing catch, but that's Julio. But he dropped a touchdown. Come on, the game would have been over plays and plays ago. But Jesus, I hope he's okay. They're going in for a second opinion on Wednesday, and I'm hoping it's another Le'Veon Bell situation where it's not as bad as they think, but it's not looking good for Julio owners. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's. From what it sounds like, it's going to be season-ending. I mean, the second opinion, I don't think I've ever seen it where someone's gone and gotten a second opinion and it hasn't been what they expected,
Le'Veon Bell.
I mean, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. This is exactly what happened. They thought, remember, it was Lisfranc.
Yeah, but he's still been
back
out
by week 3. So
I don't know. But all right, now that my rant's over, I guess let's get into the Jets-Falcons game a little bit more. I know we're kind of going in backwards order now, starting with the last game of the week, but I mean, I had to do it. This game just frustrated the hell out of me, as I'm sure it did a lot of people. But basically, I got to ask you, with Julio's injury, and then obviously Roddy White re-aggravating his hamstring, who do you think gets more work after they come out of the bye week? Do you think it's, do you think they lean on the run a little bit more, and it's Steven Jackson and maybe a little bit of Jacquizz Rodgers? And I mean, I should mention Snelling in this game did have a concussion. Obviously, they'll have the bye week this week, and by the time they play in 2 weeks, he'll be back. But do you think they rely a little bit more on the run? Or do you think it's somebody like Tony Gonzalez that just keeps performing like a stud tight end? Or do you think it's a guy like Harry Douglas that kind of comes out of the woodwork and kind of comes into that role and gets 80 to 100 yards a game? What do you think the Falcons do here now that both of their main receivers are hurt?
Well, first, let me go back to, you mentioned Roddy re-aggravated a hammy injury. I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a new injury. He had an ankle sprain.
Was it ankle before?
It was a high ankle sprain before, yes. So this is actually a new injury.
All right.
The ankle sprain last night, obviously, I was keeping a close eye on Roddy. He looked as good as he had all year, and then he does this with his hamstring. Could it have been a thing where he's overcompensating because of the ankle? Who knows? It's tough. It's tough if this is going to be something that's just another setback for him. Harry Douglas, you mentioned, he's had his opportunities. He's had a few games here and there. I just don't think he's that good of a player. I guess he would be the one to look to. He's the next in line, but he's just not very good. So I don't know what you'd expect. If you're really hurting at wide receiver, maybe
he filled in fairly nicely though those first 2 weeks of the year.
Like I said, he's had some decent games. I just don't think he's that good of a player. I really don't.
But I guess my point here is who do they turn to?
What does Harry's the next in line. He's obviously going to have an uptick in his numbers. I think you're right. Tony's definitely going to be one, as you saw last night, that he just keeps looking to because Tony's healthy. And can still play regardless of age. I can definitely see a little bit more running out of this offense. The only thing with that is, as bad as this offensive line is, how do you sustain drives? So it's going to come back to the passing. Like I said, yes, I think Harry Douglas is the one you're looking to. Go ahead and pick him up. I just don't think he's a very good player, and I don't expect a lot from him. If you're hurting at wide receivers, he's next in line here, and this team likes to throw the ball. Got a very good quarterback, so not terrible, but just don't like him as a player.
I mentioned Steven Jackson. What do you think when he comes back, he gets a full workload, or do you think they ease him back in?
Yeah, I think from what I've heard, everything is right on schedule. This was the plan, game back for after week 7. His hat was really cool last night. I like that bill. Did you notice that?
No, I didn't notice it.
It was hilarious. I think he's going to be back to full strength for week 7. This is the plan all along. They knew they had the bye week 6. I think he's back and going to get a lot of work because with Julio possibly out for the year, Roddy hurting this hammy, who knows what he's going to be like. They're going to have to really lean on Steven Jackson because there's not a whole lot left there besides him and Tony.
Jets side of the ball, are you buying into Geno Smith and how well he performed last night? Do you think this is something we should start to expect from now on, or do you think this was kind of a fluky game?
The Falcons have a terrible defense.
Yeah, always have, always will.
Yeah, it's something they just haven't corrected or even started to correct, as bad as it's been for years. But Geno, he's a rookie, of course. He looked good. He's going to have these kind of days, but he's going to have the days where he looks awful.
You could definitely see
he's got a promising career, though.
There was a couple of lapses you could definitely see where he obviously didn't know what to do or wasn't sensing the pressure early enough.
He had a huge fantasy day, but 199 yards passing. Nothing jumping out on you. Yeah. But, he looked good for a rookie. Definitely Jets, I think, might have their quarterback of the future there.
All right, let's move on to the other games here. Saints-Bears.
Actually, I just wanted to ask you, Marcus, because this is one thing I've been thinking. Bilal Powell was really gaining some ground there. Last night Ivory's back, Goodson's back. It's a 3-headed monster again. Yeah. What are you thinking of Powell for the rest of the year? Is he a top 25 guy?
I still think Powell is the guy to own out of the three of them.
I agree.
And then I think Goodson might be number 2 for me. But Powell, he's got to drop into the 30 tier, 25 to 30.
Yeah.
It's just hard.
Because he was starting to be a guy that was, getting into the top 15.
Going into this week, he was, 3rd in the AFC in rushing or something like that? He was really looking a lot better than anybody obviously expected, but now that he's going to be splitting the carries with not one guy but 2,
it's almost like you might have missed an opportunity to sell high on him.
Yeah, definitely did. But Saints-Bears, another kind of rant that I have here. Obviously, I cut Pierre Thomas on Sunday, so of course, what does he do? Season high 28 touches and 2 touchdowns. It's fluky. You're not starting a Saints running back unless his name is Darren Sproles.
Yeah, I think he had more catches in this game than he had all season.
Yeah. No, he's been catching the ball pretty frequently.
Are you sure?
Yeah, 4 to 5 catches a game.
Okay. He you had actually asked me about this when you mentioned cutting him, and we kind of both came to the same conclusion. He's a guy that's going to get you 7 points on a good day. And then here he goes and does this. But like you said, this is fluky. Not something I'm looking to see happen again. Just crap luck, I think. Don't worry about playing him or thinking that you made a huge mistake, Marcus. Certainly, I think.
No, I don't at all. Like I said, it's fluky. You're not starting a Saints running back unless his name is Darren Sproles.
Yep.
Arbitrarily, we got to talk about Jimmy Graham. Hey, he had another great day.
Yeah, we ought to just lead the podcast off with, hey, Jimmy Graham did really well today again.
Nothing
on
new.
The next thing.
Yeah, nothing new to see there.
No touchdown, though. What a bum.
Yeah, terrible, huh? Only 4 straight 100-yard games. But just important to note here that I thought no other Saints receiver had over 2 targets. 2.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Jimmy Graham had 11. No other, tight end or wide receiver had more than 2. Like, obviously, Drew Brees and Graham are on a whole other connection.
Yeah.
Bears side, I think we're going to talk about Alshon Jeffrey a little bit later, but anybody in the Bears you want to talk about?
Not really, no. I mean, like you said, we'll be talking about Alshon later. Don't worry about Brandon Marshall. I think this game by Alshon is going to put notice to the rest of the league that this kid's pretty good. And you're not going to be able to just double Brandon Marshall all game because Alshon's very capable of beating you as well. So I think this is actually a good sign for Brandon Marshall owners.
Yeah, just going back real quick to Pierre Thomas, his receptions this year. Week 1, 4. Week 2, 4. Week 3, 6. Week 4, 5.
Wow, what the hell was I thinking?
I don't know. You obviously smoked a little something before the podcast or something.
Geez, it's
here.
7:30
Had a little
at
few too many drinks or something. getting your party on early.
Well, I've been celebrating since whooping your ass this weekend. That's all.
By less than a point. It's still a bunch of crap. All right, Patriots Bengals. Tom Brady breaks his 52-game touchdown streak. Is he now in almost bench-worthy spot? I mean,
no.
I understand it's Tom Brady, but he has not been the Tom Brady we've known and expected.
Yeah, the Bengals are a good defense. A pretty good defense. I think Gronk's coming back this week. I'm pretty sure. Amendola,
Gronk's back.
Yeah, Amendola was not 100%.
Amendola came back though in this game. 4 for 55 on 9 targets. I gotta tell you, obviously, if you're owning a Patriots receiver, if you're starting a Patriots receiver, it's Amendola. But beyond that, I think the other guys, those guys are definitely bench-worthy, I think, because it's hard to decide, is it Dobson, is it Tompkins?
Yeah.
Edelman's kind of in the mix, but not really anymore. It's Amendola, and that's it for me.
Do you think Tom's bench-worthy? With Amendola, next week you got to assume he'll be back to himself.
I think
for another game.
If we're back where there's no bye weeks. After the bye weeks, if he was performing like this, it's close. Yeah. I think it's a lot closer than you'd think.
Even with Gronk coming back, you don't think that's going to be a
obviously
huge help?
That's going to be a huge help, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully this weekend when he's back, but that'll be something to watch to see. Hopefully that helps Brady out, gives him that red zone target he's been missing. That running game has been anemic, and the passing game obviously kind of slowly getting there as well. More importantly, though, in this game, Ben Jarvis Green Ellis leads the Cincy running backs in touches, 19-15, and it really wasn't even that close because he was getting all the work early on in the game, and then Gio kind of got his work later on in the game. What do you think about this? We seem to think that last week was the time that Giovanni Bernard has now kind of taken over that lead role.
We both,
and then everybody. It just flipped itself. It's back to Ben Jarvis. Who's it going to be this week? Do we know? Which one are you going to rank higher?
I'm still going to rank Gio higher just because of the playmaking ability. Obviously, BJG's more likely to score, I think, out of the two. But I haven't got a chance to watch this game, and I know I did see some of it, Sunday live. Gio fumbled, and I think it was earlier in the game. This may have been a reason why Ben Jarvis got so much work early. I'd like to watch it just to double, see the exact how this happened. Did the fumble happen and then Gio didn't play for a few series? And I can't answer that because I haven't been able to watch it yet. But
rest of the season, you still want Gio?
Yeah,
over Ben
I still
Jarvis?
want Gio over Ben Jarvis. He's just a better player. But Ben Jarvis isn't going away, so I think temper your expectations for Gio. Busting up into that top 15 range. I don't know if that's.
You're still going to have him probably around 25. 22, 25-ish, somewhere in there, rest of the season?
Yeah, I'd say that's about right.
And Ben Jarvis probably, 27 to 30 range?
Yeah. They're close. Like I said, Ben Jarvis, I think, more likely to score. Gio's a much better player, with the big play potential.
All right. Lions-Packers, Calvin Johnson, kind of maybe not a surprise inactive because he wasn't really practicing all week, but kind of surprising because normally he doesn't practice most of the week and then still plays.
Yeah.
And this week, obviously, didn't play, and obviously a big concern for Matthew Stafford and company. With Johnson out, it seemed like the Packers really just kept keying on Reggie Bush, who didn't have his normal Reggie Bush day. 13 carries for 44 yards rushing and 4 for 25 receiving. Johnson's back this week, right? He's got to be. That had to be more of a
I think he only missed.
thing.
I think this is only the 5th game he's missed in his career. And it's tough, like you said. He's always missing practice during the week and then plays. He's always missing practice, always playing. So I hope he's back because I'll tell you what, the Lions were a completely different team
They were lost
offensively
without him. Totally lost.
Stafford moves way down in the rankings if Calvin's not there.
When
Calvin would make me a top 20 quarterback. He's just that good.
I was going to say, when Tony Scheffler and Brandon Pettigrew are your two leading receivers,
Yeah.
there's
nobody
trouble.
else there.
There's trouble.
There's nobody else there for wide
That's
receivers.
worried.
The Ryan Broyles train is gone.
Eddie Lacy, I just wanted to point out, 23 out of the 26 running back carries in this game. I think you keep trying to buy low in the sky. The touchdowns will eventually come.
Yeah, as much as this Packers team moves the ball, I think Lacy's a great buy low. You're right, for sure.
Chiefs-Titans, Dwayne Bowe, just 4 for 35. I feel like we're a broken record on this. I feel like every week we're saying, Dwayne Bowe, 4 for 30 yards. I feel like that is a repeat. Just put it on repeat and just let it play over and over again. Hasn't cracked over 60 yards receiving or 4 receptions this year. He's capping out at 4, hasn't hit 5 at all. Is he getting almost to droppable range? He's kind of like Steve Smith. We talked about Steve Smith not really cracking 60 yards receiving. God, it's terrible, huh? I think Donnie Avery has got more yards than him in like 3 or 4 out of these 5 games. It's incredible that Donnie Avery is outproducing and by a long shot outproducing Dwayne Bowe.
Yeah, boy, is he droppable? I don't know. I think he's
still
got
hold
the name. You might
think,
be able to trade.
I was gonna say, I think you still hold on to him because of his potential.
Yeah.
But I'm getting really, really, really worried about him.
Yeah, I'm not playing him unless it's a flex because of these bye weeks, and I have to. But he's not good in this offense.
No.
Just the way it is. We see this now.
Titan side of the ball with Chris Johnson here. He breaks a little shovel pass that kind of takes it to the house to kind of salvage his fantasy day. But his next 2 games, he's up against San Francisco and Seattle, and then he follows that up with a bye. So really the next 3 weeks are going to be tough going for CJ2K owners. After the bye week, he does have a much nicer schedule. So if you're sitting pretty right now, obviously you're holding on to him for that easy schedule second half of the year. But if you're like me in one league, I'm 1-4. I got Chris Johnson on my team. I got to win now. This is a guy that I'm obviously looking to move. Matt, what should I expect for Chris Johnson in trade, do you think?
I'd say you could probably get Could you get an Eric Decker? Yes.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think I would probably do that deal. I like Eric Decker a lot this year.
Yeah.
Currently 9th in the league in receiving yards.
Yep.
Eric Decker. I might even, if I needed a receiver and I had other running back options, I think I would do that deal.
Yeah. He's another guy. He's got the big name, so he's someone you got to really feel out with the whole league. Talk to everybody because there's still somebody out there that's gonna think of CJ2K, and you might be able to get a decent pull for him, but I'm thinking that 15,
this is where it's important to know your league.
Yeah, that 15 wide receiver range I think is probably what you'd get for him. As far as running backs, could you get a Le'Veon Bell for him? Would somebody do that? Could you go get an Eddie Lacy? I'd probably do that. The Eddie Lacy I would do for sure.
Eddie Lacy I would do for sure. That yeah.
Bell I'm not sure of, but. Yeah, I don't know. That's probably about the range.
Here's a question. No, as a Chris Johnson owner, I wouldn't do this deal, but Fred Jackson.
No.
If you're looking to win now, a guy that scored double-digit fantasy points in 5 straight weeks, and you're looking to win now.
No, because he's got that timeshare. I know he's been playing amazing this year.
He's
really
the goal
has.
line back.
Yeah, I know. But Chris Johnson gets all the work there, basically.
No, he doesn't though. Jackie Battle gets his fair share. Jackie Battle's in there on 3rd down plays and goal line plays.
Yeah.
And Sean Green is coming back from that knee injury sooner than later.
Yeah.
And maybe Sean Green completely takes over for Jackie Battle and Jackie Battle goes away. But I don't think Jackie Battle's completely going away.
He's in there for all 3rd downs?
3rd down plays.
Wow.
Watch a couple other games. It's actually really scary that they don't have Chris Johnson. Chris Johnson can catch the ball. We've seen it.
Yeah.
The shovel pass kind of showed it.
He's
He's explosive. I don't really get it, but that's been their 3rd down back. I've been watching these games because I've been watching Chris Johnson.
Yep.
And that's been one of the things that's kind of scared me. He's a 2-down back that doesn't get goal line work anymore.
Yeah.
Does get a lot of carries. Not in this game, but so far this season has. But it's just a little scary for Chris Johnson, and his upcoming schedule's really tough. Seahawks-Colts game. Do you still love Trent Richardson, huh?
Yes, I do.
That was so hesitant. I believed it.
I don't know if I
Honey,
love
do I
him.
look fat in these jeans? No.
Yeah, pretty
No,
much.
see, that was what that was.
I don't know if I love him anymore. Maybe we're on, we've been married for 35 years, and I'm just dealing with him, I guess. I don't know. It's
I'm telling you, I know you're a guy that's been high on him. But
and I'm not saying that will be the case with me, honey, if you're listening.
18 for 56 here. It is now 8 straight games where he hasn't been able to go over 60 yards rushing. His last 100-yard game came 11 months ago.
Yeah, the thing that's worrying me is he's not catching the ball, and he's very capable of doing that. We saw it in Cleveland. I don't know, I think it probably has a lot
That's
to do
what
with the
scares
fact.
you, not his 3 yards per carry that he's been averaging.
No, because 3 yards a carry is not good, obviously. But he'll get the work, and if he get the ball out of the backfield, if he's going to get me 20, 25 touches, I'm very happy with him.
So you're
On
hoping
this
he's gonna,
offense,
you're hoping
they're
he's going to
moving
be
the
a
ball.
volume guy,
Yeah,
and kind of get you the fantasy points because of the ball.
and they have a good offense. They move the football. The touchdowns will be there, I think. I just thought he'd be more involved in the passing game. The book's still out, I think. It's only a couple weeks there. He might not be involved in the passing game because they don't trust him in the blitz pickup, those kind of things yet. So,
Side note, too...
I've still got him top 10 rest of the year running back.
Side note, too, Ahmad Bradshaw out for the year. It was confirmed today. So,
Oh, okay, I didn't hear that. I know he was getting some second opinions.
It's Trent Richardson and Donald Brown.
Yeah, I still love Trent. I mean, I want to see if in 2 weeks he's still not involved in the passing game, then I'm going to move him down. But it's too early to say that that you know what he's going to be here in Indianapolis. A team that's good. They just beat the Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean they're a good young team, but it'll be interesting to see him. Like I said, I'm not big on him this year, but years to come should be very interesting. Marshawn Lynch and Russell Wilson both rush over 100 yards. Wilson over 75 rushing yards in each of the last 2 games. Are you buying into Russell Wilson as a running quarterback again?
Sure, but he's got to because they don't
He's not been throwing the ball.
Yeah, they don't
effectively
throw the
at
ball
all.
enough. So this is the only thing that can salvage his days, and he's capable of doing it for sure. Not a top 10 guy for me at all. I'm not excited about Russell Wilson. I mean, I know he had a couple decent games here, but I just I don't know. They don't throw the ball enough there. I think when Percy comes back, that might change the game for him a little bit, but. No, I don't love Wilson. I mean, I buy the rushing. This is going to happen. I don't know if it's 75 plus.
No, that's definitely a lot.
That's not going to happen.
That's a lot. A guy I am excited about though, Zach Stacy, named the starter. Didn't have the 2 touchdowns like in my bold prediction that I said last week.
Did you say that?
Yeah, I did. I said a Rams running back, and you beat me up until I finally.
You can take the whole active
until
roster.
I finally squealed Zach Stacy out.
And there still weren't 2 rushing touchdowns.
But
no, you're right though. Zach was a good call.
14 carries, 78 yards. Darrell Richardson's still involved, though. He still had 13 carries for 48 yards. So Richardson's still involved. Zach Stacy did kind of get the early game work and already named the starter for this week. So I think he's got to be your number one waiver claim this week.
Yeah, I actually rated him. He almost cracked my top 20 this week in the rankings. I told you Richardson would stay involved just because I think he is the best pass receiving option out of the backfield there, but I think, Stacy, this was the best performance they've seen there in St. Louis from a running back since Steven Jackson. Great pickup. If you got him this weekend, you got him probably for next to nothing. And it looks like you got a starting running back for the rest of the year here who performed pretty well. It was the Jaguars, though, so let's just keep that in mind.
Other side of the ball, though, MJD was, I think, still disappointing, even though he had technically his best rushing game of the year. 17 carries for 70 yards. Would have been even more disappointing had it not been for a couple of 10-yard-plus runs towards the end of the game. I'm really, really worried now about MJD. This is the game that I thought, if any, he was going to have 100 yards, and he didn't even come close.
Yeah, I mean, I already folded on MJD, I think, last week in the pod when we did the all-in segment, so it's not a surprise to me. But like you said, I thought, if there was going to be a matchup, it was going to be this one. Blackman coming back, maybe it helped with the 17 for 70, but it's not looking good for MJD at all.
So this is another guy. What should you expect if you're looking to move him? What would you expect to get for him? Like, like Pierre Garçon, would that be a guy you could trade MJD for?
Yeah, I think you could get him for that. Based off of name for the most part.
Randall Cobb.
No.
That just ends that. Flat
not
no.
even close.
No analysis needed, just done. No.
Cobb's a top 12 wide receiver for me. No way in hell.
All right. Anquan Bolden.
Yeah, you might be able to get Anquan Bolden for him.
It's right in that line, though. Right around wide receiver 20.
If I'm an MJD owner, I'm trying to get rid of him, and I would probably do it for all of those names that you just mentioned to me. He has just really struggled this year, and his schedule coming up is real rough. He's got Denver this week, which they're going to have to score, so maybe that might be a halfway decent day. San Diego, you're not worried about them.
See, I'm worried about in that game, though, that they get down and have to throw the ball.
Exactly. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
And MJD, a guy that hasn't been involved in the passing game as much as in prior years.
After that, he's got San Diego, San Francisco, a bye week, Tennessee, Arizona, Houston, Cleveland, Houston, Buffalo, Tennessee, Indianapolis. So it's not an ideal schedule and not an ideal player. You got to try to get rid of him if you can now because it's not going to get any better.
A guy who did look better this week, Ray Rice, finally looking like Ray Rice again. 27 carries, which is amazing. I love to see him getting, like in this game, 33 touches. Amazing. 27 carries, 74 yards rushing, 2 rushing touchdowns, 6 receptions for 28 yards receiving. He's finally back. With Jacoby Jones and Marlon Brown both inactive, Torrey Smith, has another Torrey Smith day like he's been having. 6 receptions, 121 yards on 9 targets. He's had over 8 fantasy points in every game this year in standard scoring. Is he a top 15 guy moving forward?
You asked me this last week. You just want me to say
I just keep using the same notes.
You just want me to say
it's the same podcast, different names.
Yes, he is. I'll give you your credit.
Sometimes the same names.
You called this one a long time ago, and I
just want to keep rubbing it in. That's all. That's all this is.
I beat you this weekend. I think I ranked him 8 this week.
For what it's worth right now, actually, Torrey Smith, 3rd in the league in receiving yards.
Yeah.
3rd.
He's been awesome. He hasn't had less than
85
yards. I say 86 yards all season, every game, consistent. Only wide receiver they've got there, basically, and playing like a stud. I'll give it to you. Yes, top 15.
All right. Lamar Miller in this game, just 7 carries for 15 yards. Is he a guy that you're trying to buy low on or just you've given up on? You're just no chance. You don't even want to touch this guy.
I'm going to try to buy low, but I'm not giving up much to get him,
I don't think you would have to give up much to get him.
No, I don't.
I mean, let's be honest. He has not been performing well.
The thing is you figure the guy that drafted him, loved him in the preseason, probably drafted him too early, obviously, with the way he's been playing. So he's probably a guy that's a little bit harder to pry away from an owner who's just hoping and praying. But just doesn't get enough work here. He's clearly a better player than Thomas, but he needs more time out there. I wouldn't even be confident in playing him, so I guess you can buy low on him, but
just real quick, just real quick, 4 out of his 5 games this year, 12 touches or less.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Like, would you go MJD for Lamar Miller?
No,
I'd probably rather have MJD.
No, I'd rather have MJD because you know he's going to get 15 touches, 17 touches. Like I just said, Lamar Miller, 4 out of his 5 games this year, 12 touches or less.
The only thing with Lamar is you have upside in the fact that you hope that the Dolphins coaches realize he's their best running back. He needs to get more work. And one of their best playmakers. He needs to get more work. So that's the only thing you're hoping on with him is that they're going to realize that. MJD is what he is. Nothing's going to change there. So that's the only reason why Miller is a little bit intriguing if you're talking those 2 players. But I think I'd rather have MJD as well.
Mike Wallace finally comes through and has 7 catches for 105 yards. Charles Clay, another guy that I still think is interesting and still thinks a top 10 tight end for the rest of the season. 3 catches, 52 yards, and a touchdown. Has had at least 3 catches and 40 yards in every game this year. Touchdown in each of the last 2, and a touchdown in 3 out of the last 4. So I think another guy that if he's still on your waiver wire, I would go pick him up. And if you have a top tight end, maybe try to trade one of those top tight ends. Get yourself a top 15 running back, wide receiver, and kind of bump yourself down a little bit to Clay because he'll be solid for you. But Eagles-Giants game, David Wilson gets banged up in this one. Won't play in Thursday night's game. So I got to ask you, who do you think is going to start? Do you think it's going to be Brandon Jacobs, or is it going to be Darrell Scott, who they re-signed this week?
I think it'll be Jacobs, but who cares?
Yeah, neither guy
I don't
I'm
want either
excited
one of them.
about. I think
Jacobs,
it's going to be pretty evenly split with the carries too, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be surprised if Jacobs scores.
No, of course
But
not.
you can't bank on a touchdown. Neither player is very talented. But there's really no upside with either one. You're just hoping for a touchdown with Jacobs.
In this game, Nix and Randall both have big games. Cruz obviously not so much. Nix 142 yards receiving. Randall 96 and 2 touchdowns. Actually led the team in targets. And then Cruz kind of disappointing, 5 catches for 48 yards. Nothing really there. Randall just kind of interesting. I think he's another guy that if on your waiver wire, you kind of go pick him up, stash him away.
Nothing there, I guess, but we're kind of right on the fact with Nix that we kind of, jumped to conclusions with him.
Like I said, I mean, 2 weeks ago, 1 target, not his fault. Last week, not this past weekend, but the weekend before.
Yeah, his fault.
9 targets, 3 receptions. That's
Dropped 3
probably
passes.
his fault.
Yeah.
But I think there was a little bit of people overreacting to just 1 week.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is this team is awful. They're going to be losing. They're going to have to keep throwing, so.
Yeah, surprisingly 0-5 this year. Just amazing that they're not getting it done. Michael Vick obviously banged up, not going to start this week. How do you think this affects LaShawn McCoy and Deshaun Jackson and everybody else for the Eagles?
I think it hurts McCoy quite a bit.
Yeah, not having a mobile quarterback.
Read option is gone.
Yeah.
They actually ran it one play, or a couple. They ran it more than one play, but one of the plays, Foles actually kept it on the read option. It was hilarious watching him try to. I don't even know if you want to call it run around the corner, but obviously when you go into the read option, you can completely forget about Foles. So you can pin on McCoy a little easier for sure. I think they got to get him more involved in the passing game. He's just not getting the receptions that I expected. A guy like him needs the ball in the open field, and that's one of the best ways to make that happen. And that may be something you see, with Foles in the game.
Do you think it'll be more Bryce Brown now? They'll kind of run the ball more with Foles in there?
I don't know. Foles is very capable, I think, of throwing. He came in and had a pretty decent week. So I don't think it's going to hurt Deshaun Jackson and company at all. As far as McCoy, though, I do think it's going to hurt him, and it reflects in my rankings this week. It's the first time I haven't had him number 1. I actually moved him down to 4. I'll show the matchup, though. But still, it's something that's, as a McCoy owner, I'm not happy to see. But all accounts are when Vic comes back, he's going to be healthy. I think they asked him, can Foles win this job? He said, yeah, sure, anybody can win a job. If he comes out and he goes 100 for 100, we might have to look at something. So it's looking like it's Vic's job when he comes back. So don't worry too much. But yeah, I think this week McCoy's not going to have quite the game.
Yeah, I'm kind of down on obviously all those Philly players this week. Anytime you have a backup quarterback coming in there, it's going to affect all those players, kind of bring down the offense a little bit. If nothing else, just because that chemistry is off.
Yep.
Panthers, Cardinals, no changing in the guard yet. Ellington does have the most touches of the season with 11. It still finishes with more yards than Mendenhall. I still think it's coming. I still think that they're getting ready for that change. Like I said, the most touches for him this season, so they're getting ready for it. Panthers side, like I said earlier, alert the presses. Steve Smith reaches 60 yards receiving. Only the second time in his last 8 games that he's hit over 60 yards. So I got to ask you, rest of the season, who would you rather have, Steve Smith or another Panthers receiver, Brandon LaFell?
Steve Smith.
Really? I'm still going Brandon LaFell.
Yeah.
I think LaFell is getting more work than people realize, and Steve Smith is just, I think he's finally hit that wall. I think he's finally old man Steve Smith that just can't get it done.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm still going to stick with Smith. Just LaFell is so unproven, and Smith's done it many times, but I hear you. He's getting up there in age. I think he's 34 years old now.
I think he's 34, yeah.
And he's not a big guy, so quickness is really one of the biggest things with him, and it's something that as you get to be 34, it goes away. So I can see what you're saying, but I'm still going to stick with the proven veteran. LaFell's always been kind of just a decent player.
Broncos Cowboys. This game was a crazy shootout. Peyton Manning just cannot be stopped this year. He is just an animal. All Broncos receivers obviously having a great day, and why wouldn't you when Peyton Manning is having the season he's having? Eric Decker finishes with his 4th straight game as the leading Broncos wide receiver in yards. Still a guy I think is being undervalued as the quote-unquote 3rd guy in Denver. Like I mentioned earlier, ninth in the league right now in receiving yards. Again, we talked about this last week. He's a guy that was their red zone target last year, so I think those touchdowns will go up. A guy that I think is definitely being undervalued right now. No Sean Moreno. Matt, you love this guy. I don't know what it is about him. I just can't buy into it. Maybe it's my ignorance. I don't know. I just can't buy into it.
Right. He hasn't had less than 15 touches yet this year. This week, obviously, 24. He is the guy. He's the guy there. Hillman had 7 carries. Ball had 1. It's just a case of this, like you said, can Manning be stopped? The answer is no. And the number 1 running back there that gets the work, I don't know how you can't like him. I think he's definitely top 15 rest of the year. No question there. Ball, obviously the season began with a lot of questions, but as the weeks have gone on, Moreno has definitely distanced himself.
They've definitely moved into their roles now. Yeah. There's definitely defined roles for each of them.
And I don't know how you can't buy in on Moreno.
I don't know. There's just something about him I just don't like.
I feel bad for all of our fans that listen, and I hope they just laugh when you say that.
Oh, I'm sure they do. I'm sure all of them laugh at me. Everything I say. Cowboys side, though, 3 receivers have over 120 receiving yards, and I mean, frankly, that's going to happen.
Well, hey, Marcus, you have MJD. If I offered you Moreno for MJD, what would you do? You would take that in a heartbeat, right?
I would have to look at it closer.
What? Wow.
Yeah, I know.
I would rather have MJD than Chris Johnson rest of the year. Moreno than Chris Johnson rest of the year.
I would have to go back and look at the numbers, but I would probably take Moreno. You're probably right. I would have to go back and look at his stats a little bit closer because I hate the guy so much I don't look at his stats. But I just don't like him. I don't know what it is about him. I hate him. I don't want him on my team.
As a person or as a football player?
I don't know. Everything. me and LaShawn McCoy, we just hate him. Like with LaShawn McCoy's tweet. No, Sean sucks. I don't know what it is. Me and LaShawn McCoy just hand in hand, walking down the road, just hating on No Sean together.
I didn't see that. When did that happen? What did LaShawn say?
On Sunday.
Really?
Yeah, LaShawn McCoy tweeted out No Sean sucks. And
why?
No Sean tweeted back to him.
What did he say?
I forgot. I'd have to go back and look at it now. But
what's the history?
They had a little back and forth.
I wonder if they're just buddies messing with each other.
No. If you went back and read it, you'd see.
Really?
I'll have to show you after the pod. But
that's funny.
Cowboy side of the ball, like I said, 3 receivers have over 120 receiving yards, and that's going to happen, obviously, when you throw for over 500 yards. Dez obviously is back to elite form. Witten, I think, is a solid top 5 tight end. But what about Terrence Williams? He's been really, really good filling in for Miles Austin. When Austin comes back, how do you think this shakes up? I got to believe that Austin still comes back as the wide receiver too, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll go to more 3 tight end sets to get Terrence Williams some more play.
3 wide receiver set, yep.
Yeah, but how do you think this all shakes up when Miles Austin comes back?
Yeah, like you said, he's been playing well. He actually, 2 weeks ago, fumble, which would have been a touchdown. So we would have been talking about 2 real good games in a row. I think he does go back to the number 2, Austin, and Williams will move to 3. But if I'm the GM, if I'm in the organization there in Dallas, I'm sick and tired of Miles Austin and this hamstring thing keeps coming back. You've got a young kid here who's looking like he can play. Maybe it's time to not make the shift completely, but maybe I wouldn't be surprised if they split.
Hard to say that after only 2 games, though.
I know
they paid Miles a lot of money.
I know, but Miles is just constantly dealing with this hamstring thing. I think it's going to be a case where they're going to, yes, he's going to be the number 2, but I won't be surprised if more than a few times a game when there's 2 wide receivers out there, Terrence is going to be in there instead of Austin. I don't know what I would do about picking him up. It's just such a question of what the workload's going to be there when Austin does come back. I really don't know. I'm just speculating. So
the only person I think that might consider picking him up at this point, because Austin is probably going to be back this week, is the Miles Austin owner for the potential of Miles possibly getting hurt either this game or the next game and Terrence coming back.
Yeah.
I think that's the only person that could own him at this point. Because, like we kind of said, with Witten kind of performing the way he is, at best, Williams is going to be the fourth receiving option for them.
Yeah.
So just not a lot of work there moving forward.
I mean, he's definitely a guy to look to pick up, depending on your roster for sure. And like in my case, in my league, we've got, I've got, in our home league, I got Julio, I got Cruz, I got Demarius.
This is just going to be hey, look at what I got, everybody.
No, I mean, well, Julio's leaving, but I still have Blackman, I still have Percy Harvin. I'm not going to look to pick him up, but if you're...
No, of course not.
A guy...
12-team leagues, you're not touching him.
If you're a guy that's hurting at wide receiver, you may, though, because 12-team leagues guys have Ryan Broyles, and I'm dropping him for Terrence Williams.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah, Ryan Broyles, sorry. So it's... I think you got to look to pick them up if you have something on your roster that you can drop that's worse. And if you've got a question, shoot it over to us, and we'll help you answer that on Twitter for sure.
Hey, real quick, guys, if anybody wants to listen to 5 minutes of Terrence Williams, there it was.
Yeah,
we spent way too much time on him just then. But all right, let's move on. Texans 49ers. If you told me the 49ers were going to score 34 points in this game, and you said how many fantasy points do you think Kaepernick has, I would pick 15 plus easy. I mean, I can't.
Yeah.
Believe how bad he is looking. I mean, he is not going to be in my top 12 this week, I think, even with... I mean, I got to go back and look at it, obviously, because of the bye weeks, but, I mean, just 6 completions, 9 fantasy points, 6 of them come on one play to Vernon Davis. It's looking real bad for Kaepernick right now. He's got to be benched. These last 4 games, he's averaging 140 passing yards, 0 rushing touchdowns, even counting in his 87 rush yard game that he had in there, he's only averaging 30 rushing yards a game, so he's not running the ball, he's not throwing the ball. It's just ugly. He's killing me.
You think Alex Smith is calling Harbaugh every once in a while, just pranking him?
Is it? I'm...
Hey, you miss me yet?
You know what the scary part is? I'm about 90% sure that Alex Smith has more rushing yards this year than Kaepernick, even with Kaepernick's 87-yard game.
Yeah.
I mean,
it is very scary.
Who would have thought that Alex Smith would have more rushing yards than Colin Kaepernick 5 weeks into the year?
Nobody. Not one person on the planet. And if you talk to Ron Jaworski over at ESPN, remember what he said preseason? Kaepernick has the chance to be the best quarterback ever, he said.
Wow.
He's the guy that does the rankings of quarterbacks. Yeah, no kidding.
And real quick, I looked it up. Alex Smith, 161 yards rushing this year. Kaepernick, 154.
Wow.
So Alex Smith slightly better than him rushing the ball this year. Scary thought right there.
Far cry from week 1, that's for sure. And I don't think it's coming back. I don't think week 1's happening again.
No, definitely not. Arian Foster, 2 straight games with over 20 carries. It looks like Tate's just back to being a handcuff again, huh? I mean, he is not part of really that offense anymore. Like we thought it was going to be more of an even, not even split, but maybe a 60-40 split. And I think it's more back to just Arian Foster and a little taste of Ben Tate here and there when he's tired, right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. Foster's looking good.
Tate is by no means flex worthy, I don't think. He's in that 35 range, I think, for me.
Yeah, 35 unless you're in the matchup where they're playing, the Jaguars or something like that, where he's going to get some late game work. He's definitely a guy that you want to own if you're a Foster owner, but beyond that, maybe you keep him because you're hoping to make a trade with that Foster owner, but Tate's been forgotten, I think.
Chargers Raiders. Ryan Matthews gets a concussion in this game. Ronnie Brown and Danny Woodhead kind of split the carries there. No fantasy. Well, I mean, obviously Woodhead has fantasy value, especially in PPR leagues where he's tearing it up. But I don't think you can bank on either one of them running the ball if Matthews misses a game.
No, I mean we didn't hate Woodhead, and this obviously helps catapult him a little bit for sure. But I don't love either one of them, and Ronnie Brown, stay away.
Maybe Woodhead makes it into flex-worthy range because of this in standard leagues, but nothing real big there. Just real interesting to note that I wanted to point out on the Raiders side of the ball. Denarius Moore now has 3 touchdowns in 4 games when playing with Terrell Pryor.
Yep.
I think this is the guy that Terrell Pryor is looking for, so I think Denarius Moore, if you can buy him cheap, which I think you can because Not a lot of people realize what Moore's been doing with Pryor.
Yep.
That you should go out and get him, and if you can have him as your wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4,
You're doing awesome.
that's a good pickup. Has 8 targets in this game, more than double any receiver for the Raiders. This is the guy that Pryor's looking for.
Yeah, and Pryor he's good.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing much better than expected. I mean, yeah.
Expected by most. I think I did have him as a sleeper this preseason.
All right, Thursday night game, I should say. Giants, Bears. You're starting all your Bears in this game. You're obviously not worried about the Giants' defense by any means. Wilson out, like we talked about, so it's Jacobs and Scott. We kind of already went over those two there. Obviously you're still starting Nix. You're still starting Cruz. Would you start Ruben Randall in this game against the Bears defense?
Yeah, I mean we're in the bye weeks. Depending on your roster, it's something.
I think after last week, he's got to be moved up a little bit, and he's probably in that 25 to 30 range. I would think.
It's his second game of over 100 yards. He had 96 yards, but
96 yards.
Second solid game of the year. Yeah, it's out of 5. I mean, we're talking about a number 3 wide receiver, but with bye weeks here, and depending on what your roster is, he's a guy that you could put in as a flex. And like I said before, this team is terrible. They're going to be throwing quite a bit. And, he had how many targets this week? 12?
13.
13 targets, so you like that. And the kid's a talented player for sure.
Mr. Son of a Beach, let's play some cards.
All in, bluffing, calling, or folding him. Trent Richardson.
Calling or folding.
Rob Gronkowski. I am all in on Jamal Charles.
He was just compared to Barry Sanders.
All right, time for Matt's all-in segment here now. A couple of guys that we're going to go over and see if Matt's, if you're all in on these guys, you're folding them, what are we doing? So let's start with the guy that I really like, the lead running back now for the Rams, Zach Stacy.
Yeah, I'm all in. And because of, you picked him up in our home league for what, $1? $2?
Couple bucks, yep.
Because of what you've gotten
and
him
I drafted
for,
him at the beginning of the year because I thought this might happen eventually. I couldn't wait for it to happen, unfortunately, so I was picking up other guys that had bigger upside, but you saw the potential there. You saw where this running back situation could go. Yeah,
he unfortunately looks like I'm going to lose that preseason bet that 2 weeks ago we laughed about you even making with me, so funny how things change, but
they change quickly.
I'd say I'm all in. Not that I think he's going to turn into a top 10 back, but I'm talking about a starting running back. And a guy that you got for nothing, so I'm all in. It's not like you're going to trade him now. It's not like he'll have super high value. I think he's a great depth guy to have on your team, and someone who could end up being, an RB2 flex type guy.
Yeah, I think he's closer to flex range. I think he's
right
closer
now, right now.
The Willis McGahees, that type. I mean, that's where I kind of put him.
Yeah,
the range where if you had to start him, you're okay with it, but you're not comfortable with it. You're not excited about it.
But this was the first game. I mean, this could improve.
Oh, yeah, of course.
More touches coming his way, possibly, and all in. That was a good move by you this weekend, picking him up and actually mentioning him on the pod Friday.
Yeah, Alshon Jeffrey kind of exploded this week. Had 13 targets, caught 10 of them for 218 and a touchdown. In this game, no other Bears receiver had more than 5 targets. 4 of his 5 games this year, he's had 8 targets or more. How are you feeling about Alshon Jeffrey?
I think he's one that you could bluff on. I don't think you're going to have another 10 receptions, 218, and a touchdown.
No, definitely not.
So if you get somebody that really buys in on this and you can get a nice pull from him, make the trade because Brandon Marshall is the guy there, and that's not going to change. I think, like I said earlier, him having a game like this is going to put league on notice. We can't just double, triple Marshall and think that we're going to be okay. Alshon can hurt us too, so try to make a trade if you can. If you can't, definitely a guy that I think's got some flex potential, some wide receiver 3, and an injury away from being a top 10, 15 wide receiver, no question. So I don't know. What do you think on this one? I'm kind of torn.
Well, real quick for me, I know he had the big game obviously this week, but he's now 8th in the league in receiving yards.
Yep.
He has more receiving yards than Brandon Marshall and only 2 targets less than Brandon Marshall. Jay Cutler looks to him a lot.
8 targets or more in 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, it's a team that is going to pass the ball a lot. and obviously their number 2, passing option, their number 2 receiving option after Marshall. Forte obviously in the mix, Bennett obviously in the mix, but I think this is the guy he looks to after Marshall a lot, and I mean these numbers are showing it. So when defenses do what they do in this game and they key on Marshall, it's going to leave Jeffrey open on one-on-one coverage, that type of thing, to kind of, exploit, the defense and have games like this. I mean, obviously not games like this. This is, obviously, way out there, and it's not repeatable by any means.
Right.
But 100 yards receiving and a touchdown, every couple games is definitely something that's on the horizon for Alshon Jeffrey.
Hey, we'll have to pat Blindside Football on the back for this one. I mentioned him in the pod last week too, last Friday, as a good guy to put in the lineup.
Yeah, he was in your bowl predictions, I think, as well.
What are you thinking on him? I said I'm gonna trade because of where the value is now. I don't think it's gonna get any higher.
He's a guy that I would be holding on to.
Yeah. Okay.
It's kind of hard to explain, but I think last week, like you said, it's definitely not repeatable. He's not going to get close to that. I think if you're counting on him for 8 to 10 points, then you're good. That's about what he'll get you. I think if you're expecting, 16 to 18 points, if you're expecting wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside, I think that's expecting a lot. But if you're getting him as your wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside, then that's what you should be expecting out of him.
Okay.
Moving on, though, Larry Fitzgerald. How do you feel about him? He had a season high in yardage in week 1 with just 80 yards. Hasn't come very close to that since. Only 1 touchdown in the last 4 games. How are you feeling about Larry Fitzgerald?
I'm calling on him because, his value's about as low as it can go. The thing that scares me is that offensive line is just not good. I'd like to see when Cooper's coming back, their guard they drafted. I know he wasn't a full season injury, and that's going to help the line for sure, but there's just no time for Palmer there, and he's struggling as well. I thought Larry would have a big year this year with Carson coming along, but the offensive line, in the trenches is huge, and he's not getting the time to look to Larry. But I'm calling because I'm not gonna trade him yet. You're not gonna get what I think he's going to end up being worth at this point.
I was going to say, just speaking real quick about Larry Fitzgerald trading, I actually had a question about that on Twitter earlier this week. Somebody asked me, should I trade Larry Fitzgerald and Jermichael Finley for Matt Forte? And he said, Jordan Cameron is his starting tight end. And I said, absolutely, you do that.
What was the... Say it again, sorry.
Larry Fitzgerald.
Yep.
And Jermichael Finley for Matt Forte. And I said, you jump all over that.
Yeah.
Especially if Jordan Cameron is your starting tight end.
Yeah, but we're talking, that's a top 6-7 tight wide running back, that you're getting.
Yeah, I had another question about Fitzgerald's trade value this week. And the guy, and this one I think is crazy, but he said if he can trade Larry Fitzgerald for Torrey Smith, would you do it? And I said, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely in a heartbeat. I'm not thinking about it, but I don't think the Torrey Smith owner is going to do that, though.
So you know what, then? Maybe it's a bluffing because of the fact that I don't know if it's going to get a heck of a lot better there, and he's still got the name of Larry Fitzgerald, and maybe...
He still has the name, that's what he's got going for him.
If those couple trades that you just mentioned to me, maybe it's making me change my mind because obviously people are still valuing him pretty high.
It's kind of like the MJD thing. Sometimes the name value, people remember those glory days and kind of think that could happen again.
Yeah, so you know what? I changed my mind. Then if you can, I'm gonna say his value is high. I guess from the sounds of those couple questions, maybe those are isolated incidents.
Yeah,
feel it out, throw it around your league, like you said. Know your league, put him out there, and if you can still get, Larry Fitzgerald type value back, even though he's not Larry Fitzgerald from a few years past, trade him.
Justin Blackmon, the final one on your list here. 9 targets, 5 for 136 and a touchdown. Gabbert gets hurt again, so we got Henry coming in there. What are you doing with Justin Blackmon?
Oh, I'm definitely bluffing on him. Big game, but I just, great player. I think he's going to be a great player. I shouldn't say he's great yet. He's too young. But this team is just pathetic. They really are.
You don't want anybody on this team.
I have a train of thought, though, also, with Shorts as well, and Blackmon. They're this bad that they're just always going to be behind. They're going to keep throwing the football, and Blackmon is a very talented player. So I'm going to say trade him because of the game that he had, and if you get a buyer on it, then do it. But other than that, don't be surprised if you're talking a top 20 wide receiver the rest of the season.
So make sure to follow Matt and I on Twitter at Marcus Katkin and at Matt Dougal. Make sure to keep sending your questions to #BlindsidePod or emailing them to us at blindside@blindsidefootball.com. And don't forget, Matt, Rob Druin, and I always tweeting every Sunday from noon to 1 p.m. So make sure to send your start and sit questions to us at #AskBlindside on Twitter. Got a couple questions this week. One from our superfan Graham. We're just going to start calling him Superfan Graham.
Yeah, that sounds good too.
It does. He asks, how early is too early to start thinking about the playoff matchups? He says, he thinks obviously right now, even sitting at 5-0 in some of his leagues, 4-1 in others, he thinks it's obviously right now is a little bit too early. But he says, if he gets to that point where he's 6-1, is this a time when he should start to consider guys like Percy Harvin or Shane Vereen for his fantasy playoffs? Or start looking at favorable fantasy matchups coming into the fantasy playoffs?
I'm happy he asked about Percy, and I actually wanted to bring him up in the podcast. I think he's a guy you need to go pick up now.
Sounds like he's going to be back soon. There's some good
reports coming out. He's back with the team now. He's not rehabbing with the doctor who he did the surgery with back in New York. So I think it's a guy you go pick up before it's too late. And I actually picked him up a week ago. Just failed to mention on the podcast, so I apologize for that.
Matt likes to let his secrets out of the bag after he's done them.
Yeah, I know. If I told you, on the pod, Marcus would have been picking up.
I'm totally transparent. I say everything I'm doing.
That's not why I held it back. I just didn't think about it. But I think Percy, yes, pick him up, and not even talking about just playoffs. Now, if we're talking Shane Vereen, yeah, you're talking playoffs. I think you're starting to get to the point where you're starting to realize what defenses are. And by what I mean by that is like preseason, yes, you've got your ideas based off of last season, but so many things change. We're into 5 weeks now. 6 weeks coming up. You're starting to figure out what these defenses are, so you can start to look to those matchups if you're in a situation where maybe you're 4-1, 5-0 type team. But it's probably still a little too early for that.
Yeah, I think right now is a little bit too early. I think week 7 is probably the time you start looking at fantasy matchups.
Yeah.
Percy Harvin, I think, aside from this, Percy Harvin's a guy right now you should be picking up just because he's going to be back soon.
Yep.
But guys like Shane Vereen or looking at fantasy, players that have favorable matchups in your fantasy playoffs, you shouldn't be considering until week 7. Week 8.
Yep.
Right around the time that you're definitely going to make
and
it.
Obviously,
if you're 7-1, 8-0, that type of thing.
That's what I was going to say. Obviously, if you're struggling to make the playoffs, just win now, baby.
Yeah. If you're 4-4 in week 8, you're not planning for the playoffs. You're trying to win now.
Yeah, you're literally looking every week to win, and don't worry about the next week.
Jonathan Smith at SJonathan02 on Twitter asks, would you trade Darren Sproles for Torrey Smith and Greg Olsen in a PPR league? He said his current tight end is Jared Cook. His other running backs are Jamal Charles, David Wilson, and Giovanni Bernard. Absolutely, you do this deal and you don't look back. Cook has looked atrocious. You need to upgrade your tight end. And personally, I think if you can get Torrey Smith for Darren Sproles straight up, that's a great deal. I would much rather have Torrey Smith. And your running backs you have now, Charles, Wilson, Gio, those are all guys that are going to catch balls and going to be starters for you. Can easily be starters for you over Sproles anyway. So I like that deal. I think you do that deal in a second.
Yeah, I mean, in a PPR, Sproles and Torrey are a little closer, of course.
A little bit closer, but I still would rather have Torrey.
But Greg Olsen is a big upgrade, I think, for your tight end. I was terribly wrong on Cook. He's being dropped in my league this week for sure. So yeah, you're improving at your tight end position, I think, substantially. Plus, you're getting Torrey, which is, I think, a better player than Sproles. So yeah, do this one quickly. Hopefully, it's still there for you after you hear this.
Well, that'll do it for us, guys. Matt, you got anything else you want to add?
No, I enjoyed beating you this weekend.
I was going to say, any secrets you wanted to hide? Hiding Percy Harvin deals, and we'll get into your bold predictions on Friday when you tell somebody 60 yards, 60 yards and a touchdown this week.
I had 2 out of 3 bold predictions this week.
Oh, jeez. All right.
I mean, like I said, nothing else other than it was fun beating you this weekend, Marcus, and I hope everyone else has as much fun as I did this weekend.
0.9.
All that matters is the win, baby.
All right, we'll see you guys on Friday.
See ya.
Yo, check it. It's
it's my time. I'm rapping about Blindside, fantasy football podcast in this rhyme because they got me the inside scoop on Adrian Peterson. Yeah, he's that dude on Cam Newton. Yeah, they give me the news more on Megatron, Calvin Johnson if I stay tuned. On all quarterbacks, RG3 happens to be the fastest QB in the league. In fact, Colin Kaepernick is rider QB for them 49ers. It ain't hard to see, some awesome people hosting Marcus Catkin and Matt Dugal. You should be joining, skinny or fat, short or tall. Anyone can tune in to Blindside Football. Have a try, dude. Listen on iTunes or blindsidefootball.com too.